Good morning, grade 9s. This is pattern 1. So let's go ahead and review. Hopefully, I remind you, you're meant to do this first. Oops, sorry, I'm kind of sitting above it. You're meant to do this first without any guidance. So the goal is that this is a review. So let's review. The first ones are going to be much simpler. And then as we go down towards the bottom, they'll be a little more complex, and we'll break them all down. So let's do the first one. Taylor slept. What's my verb? Slept. Past tense. It's an action verb. Go ahead and break it apart. I'm going to go ahead and underline it so we understand the concepts of it. And Taylor is who slept. So slept, my verb. Who slept? Taylor. That is my subject, and that is a noun. It is that simple. And I'll lift it up so you can see it better. But it's that simple. That's all we're looking for. Let me bring it down a little bit. We'll adjust for the longer ones. John had slept. Okay. So had could mean that como tener, like I have something. But do I have sleep? No, I had slept. So it works as a verb phrase. So it's a verb phrase. Okay, slept still being the key piece. And that is another action verb. Who slept? John. And that's a noun. Doing good so far. Number 3, the movie ended on time. What is the actual verb in this? Ended. Okay, once again, that's an action verb. What ended? Well, the movie ended. So, movie is the key piece, and it is a noun. This is what we would call an article. Okay? The, a, an, like these letters over here. I'm sorry, these words over here. The, and, a, those are articles. Okay? Is it the movie or is it a movie? Which one are we talking about? One watched. Okay, this one's easy again. I wonder why. Subject, verb. That's very simple. Right? Maybe there's a hint for that. Maybe I taught you something there. Maybe. Let's find out. Number 5. One of the students watched. Okay, well, let's think logically. If one watched is one being the subject and watched being the verb, let's assume that watched is the verb again. It's literally the only verb in there. And it's an action verb, just like that. Should write action up here and noun. However, one of the students, does it change? What is the key word here? Well, if you notice, we have the word of right here. Of is a preposition, and it usually identifies a prepositional phrase. Of the students is a prepositional phrase, and it identifies what one actually is. So, technically, and correctly, 100%, the separation would be here. This is all the subject, except for this is the key element, one. It's a pronoun. I should write pronoun. Pronoun. Okay, one is an indefinite pronoun, they call that, meaning that they don't know how many, it's not defined, because one should be a definite pronoun. Let's ignore what I just said. One is a definite pronoun. Okay, we don't know what one is, but it's one specific one. So let's look at number 6. The man down the street arrived late. What's the actual verb? The man down the street arrived. Oh, that's the only verb in the sentence. Arrived. Once again, is an action verb. Okay? The man down the street. Who arrived is the major question. Well, the man did, right? Isn't that your subject? And he's a noun? So what's all this extra stuff? Well, the is an article again, and it works off of man. Down is another preposition. Down the street. Well, that works off of man. Which man? The man down the street. So the goal here is identify what works off of what. We have almost all the words. Late. What does late mean? Was the man late? Sure, but this isn't a linking verb, so it's not a pattern 4. It's a pattern 1. So what does late work with? Oh, it's telling me how he arrived, which makes it an adverb, right? So if it's working with the verb, it's an adverb, something that adjusts the verb. Let's continue. After the show, my students screamed loudly. What's the verb? After the show tells me when, my students somebody screamed. Oh, that's an action. I'm going to go ahead and put a verb there. And it's an action verb, like we said. Action. Okay? Screamed loudly, kind of like arrived late. Oh, that must just be like another adverb. That's no big deal. Right? But who screamed? That's the question, because we're looking for our major components. Who screamed? My students screamed. Students specifically. My works off of students. This is called a possessive pronoun. It tells me who's in charge. Like, it's my home, it's my students, they're mine. Technically, it works that way. So what is after telling you? After the show? We already decided that talks to you about the time, right? After is a preposition. So after the show, my students screamed loudly. What happened after the show? Screamed. This works like an adverb as well. It's telling me when the action was performed. Okay, so this prep phrase would work like an adverb. Let's do number 8. Every morning, Mr. Dopich meditates for a few minutes. Now, that may not be true every morning, but I am trying to start to do that. What am I trying to start to do? What's the action? Meditates. So let's break it down. Verb. It's an action verb. Okay. Who is meditating? Well, Mr. Dopich is meditating. That's a noun. So what is the extra information? Well, we have 2 pieces. We have every morning, and we have for a few minutes. Every morning, once again, tells you what? It tells you when I meditate. Therefore, this must be an adverb. Even though every morning is a noun, it tells you when, right? Morning is a noun. Every is an adjective. It tells you how many mornings. But however, together, this works like an adverb. It tells you when the meditation happened. So let's move over a little bit further. For a few minutes. For is a preposition. That's easy. Let's go ahead and put that in a prepositional phrase. What does he do for a few minutes? He meditates. Once again, working like an adverb. Okay, so this is a prep phrase. The goal here, once again, is that everything works off the key components. If you see, and if we go back, everything kind of does work off the key components. That's why I build these little lines for you to see that they all build into that centerpiece. So let's do the last 2. Sometimes, Mr. Dopich meditates in his classroom before school. Well, we have the same structure. Mr. Dopich meditates, Mr. Dopich meditates. That's pretty simple. That's the verb, right? That's what the action is happening, or where the action is happening. And, just like the last one, my subject is my noun. Sometimes works off of when he meditates, where he meditates is in the classroom, and at what time he meditates. Okay? So this is a prepositional phrase. This is a prepositional phrase. And this is just an adverb. Lastly, some of my favorite people suffered during the pandemic from COVID-19. What is the actual verb? The only verb in here is suffered. And it's an action verb. Next, who suffered? Some of my favorite people is technically the entire thing. Here's the moment of truth. Did you identify it correctly? If you see, of my favorite people is a prep phrase. Therefore, some must be my major component. During the pandemic and from COVID, once again, are just prep phrases. And they're telling you what? What is the thing that they're telling you in this? During the pandemic tells me when they suffered, from what they suffered, okay, and some suffered. So, all of these being a pattern 1, it's much easier for you to identify the bits and pieces, especially when you go verb, subject, and then build off of those. The hard pieces I'm noticing with you, specifically your group, is these moments. Some of my favorite people, some suffered. That's the key. My favorite people suffered could work too, but I didn't say that. I didn't say my favorite people suffered, because not all of them did. Only some of my favorite people. Could I remove of my favorite people and still have some suffered? Would it still make sense? Correct. If I said of my favorite people suffered, no, some. That's that key root piece right there. So hopefully you did well, and we will see you in class.